A father insisted I give up my seat so his family could sit, then tried to bully me in front of my daughter when I refused. He got the plot he deserved. I got to the cinema early with my daughter to see one of the Lord of the Rings movies, the kind of long movie you want good seats for. The place was almost empty. We had our pick, so we took 2 seats toward the back, dead center, the best spots in the house, with whole rows sitting empty all around us. Usually nobody bothers you at the movies. People keep to themselves. Then, about 10 minutes before the trailers, 2 men came in with 4 kids trailing behind them, and one of them walked straight up to our row, looked right at us, and said, "Can you both move so we can sit there? No, excuse me. No, please. No reason. Just move." I said, "No." He blinked, like the word did not compute, and then he came back harder. "You can sit somewhere else." I looked at all the empty rows around us and back at him and said, "No, I got here early to get good seats. That should have been the end of it. It was not. It's not fair," he said louder now. "I've got 4 kids here. We need to sit together in the middle. You're 2 people. Don't be selfish." The other man chimed in behind him. "Come on, mate, just slide over a few rows. It's not a big deal." I told him it was not a big deal for him to take any of the 10 empty rows around us, since he was the one who wanted a change. The first man did not like that. "This is exactly why people can't stand folks like you," he said, and he looked at my daughter when he said it. "Great lesson you're teaching your kid. Real nice." He was trying to shame me into it in front of her and in front of his own children. And when I still did not move, he decided that if he could not have my seats, he would make me sorry I kept them. Instead of taking any of the open rows, he planted his whole group in ours. He spread the 4 kids into the seats beside us and behind us, in a theater with room for 200, and he and his friend sat close enough to keep a running commentary going. "Some people just have to ruin it for everyone," he said. Not to me, but loud enough for me. "Hope those seats are worth it." At one point, he told one of the kids to squeeze into the empty seat on my other side, boxing us in, and said out loud that the mean lady would not share, so they would just have to crowd her. When the trailer started, he kept talking. When the movie started, he kept talking, narrating his grievance to his friend on purpose, complaining about selfish people every few minutes, making sure his voice carried into the back of my head. My daughter looked at me, and I told her quietly to watch the movie. We were fine. She kept her eyes forward the way I asked her to, but I could see her hands in her lap, twisting the corner of her jacket over and over, and I knew she was hearing every word of it. That is the thing nobody tells you about being the one who says no. You do not just absorb it yourself. Your kid sits there next to you absorbing it too, and every minute you let it keep going is a minute she learns something about what happens to women who do not move when they are told to. A few rows down, people started turning around. Somebody said, "Shh." He got louder to spite them. This went on until a young usher came in with a flashlight, drawn by the noise, and the man saw his opening. "Finally," he said, half standing. "These 2 took our seats and won't move. Tell them they have to move." The usher looked at the mostly empty theater, then at us, then at him. "Sir, the seating isn't reserved. It's first come. There are open seats all through here. You're welcome to any of them." His face changed. "No, I want those seats. We were going to sit there. Make them move or get me your manager." The usher said he would get the manager, and he did, which was the next mistake. The manager was a soft-spoken guy named Hal, and he came up the steps while the film played and crouched at the end of our row. The man started in on him loudly. The same speech. 4 kids. Need to sit together. These people are selfish. And Hal waited for him to finish and then said, "The seats aren't booked, sir. These guests were here first, and there's plenty of open seating. I can help you find seats together, but I can't ask anyone to move." "That's ridiculous," he said, and he stood all the way up now, pointing at us. "This is a joke. I'm not letting 2 people hog the best seats. Do something." Hal kept his voice low. "Sir, I need you to bring it down. You're disturbing the whole screening." He did not bring it down. He got louder, told Hal he had never seen such terrible service, said he would never come back, said he wanted a refund and an apology and my seats, all of it at full volume while 100 other people were trying to watch Middle-earth. Hal gave him one more chance. "Either take your seats and settle, or I'll have to ask you to leave." The man puffed up and said, "You're going to throw me out over this?" And Hal said, "I'm asking you to lower your voice." He would not, because for him it had stopped being about seats a long time ago and turned into needing to win. So Hal stood, and another staff member appeared at the aisle, and the 2 of them walked both men out, and the 4 kids had to gather their drinks and their snacks and file out after them, into the lobby, away from the movie they had come to see. What happened next is the part he never knew about, and it is the reason this story ends the way it does. Hal came back up about 20 minutes later, and crouched by my row again, and apologized apologized for the disruption in a whisper. I told him he had nothing to apologize for, and he said something I did not think much of at the time. He said, "For what it's worth, I recognized him before I got to the top of the stairs." That's the second time. He tried the same thing in this screen in March. Same row, same speech about 4 kids. I asked if he was serious. He said he had written it up both times, that it was in the log with the date and the screen number, and that if the friend had not talked him down in March, he would have been walked out then too. He gave me his card in case there was any trouble in the parking lot, and he went back down to the lobby, and I put the card in my coat pocket and forgot about it, and watched the rest of the movie with my daughter. On our way out, I heard the friend say the first man's name twice, trying to calm him down. Dante. That was the name. Later, my son begged for burgers, so I took both kids out to eat somewhere nice, and the second we walked in the door, I froze, because there they all were at the big table in the center of the room, forks in the air, and every one of them turned to look at us. I stood in that doorway with Delbert's hand in mine, and every instinct told me to turn around. But Delbert was already pulling toward the host stand, hungry and completely oblivious, and I was not about to walk my son back out into a parking lot because of that man. So I asked for a table, and we got seated on the far side of the dining room. Sandra came in a minute behind us, having stayed in the car to finish a phone call, and when she scanned the room looking for us, I saw the exact moment she spotted them. Her whole face went tight, like someone had pulled a string behind her jaw, and she came straight to our table without looking at them again. She slid into the booth next to Delbert and leaned close to me. "Mom, that's the guys from the theater." I put my hand on hers under the table. "I know, we're eating dinner. That's all we're doing." She nodded, but she did not relax. I could feel the stiffness in her arm, the way she was holding herself like she was ready to leave at any second, and it made something burn in my chest, because no kid should have to sit like that in a restaurant. Delbert had no idea any of it was happening. He had not been at the cinema. He did not know those men existed. He had his menu open flat on the table, and he was running his finger down the drinks. "Mom, they have chocolate milkshakes and strawberry milkshakes. Can I get both?" I almost laughed. "Pick one, buddy." He scrunched up his face like I had handed him a math problem, and went back to studying the menu like his life depended on it. I loved him for that. Then I heard Dante's voice, not shouting, but pitched at that exact level where you know it is meant for someone specific. "Some people just follow you everywhere," he said to his friend. "Can't escape rude people these days." The friend laughed, but it was a short laugh, the kind where somebody is going along with it because he feels like he has to. At the cinema, he had been right there, backing Dante up, feeding him lines. Now the laugh sounded thin. I ordered for the 3 of us, burgers and fries, a strawberry milkshake for Delbert because he finally made his choice, a soda for Sandra, water for me, normal food, a normal dinner. That is what I kept telling myself. But Sandra was not touching the bread. She was not on her phone. She was watching the other table the way you watch a dog you are not sure about. "He keeps looking over here," she said quietly. "Are we going to have to leave?" That one hurt. My daughter was asking whether we had to run away from our own dinner because a grown man could not let go of a fight he started and lost. I made sure my voice was steady. "No, we are not leaving. We did nothing wrong." She searched my face like she was checking whether I meant it, then gave me a small nod and picked up a piece of bread. She did not eat it. She just held it, but she stayed. I picked up my own menu and tried to read the words on it, and I could feel the weight of that other table like a hand on the back of my neck. I told myself the plan. Order the food, eat the food, pay the bill, walk out. 3 kids worth of dinner, and then the car, and then home, and that man across the room does not get to change one single thing about my evening. It was a good plan. It lasted about 9 minutes. The server brought the milkshake, and Delbert's face lit up like it was Christmas morning, and Sandra smiled at him, a real smile. And for a minute I thought we were going to get through this. Then Dante stood up. He pushed his chair back, said something to the kids, and started across the floor toward us, not rushing. That slow, heavy walk of a man who has been rehearsing something for hours and has finally decided this is the moment. Sandra went still beside me. Delbert looked up, saw a stranger coming with a face even a 7-year-old could read, and put his milkshake down. "Mom, who's that man?" "It's nobody, sweetie. Eat your fries." But it was not nobody. At the cinema, I had stayed small. I had whispered to my daughter and waited for somebody else to fix it. This was my dinner table, and my son was sitting at it, and I was done absorbing. Dante planted himself at the edge of the table and crossed his arms and looked down at me with an ugly little smile that was not really a smile. "Small world. You remember me, right? From the cinema? The guy you got thrown out?" He said it like a fact, like I had personally dragged him into the lobby by the collar, and I felt Sandra shrink beside me. I set my menu down and kept my voice calm, the kind of calm that takes real effort. "I remember you. You were the one yelling during the movie." His jaw tightened. frightened. He had expected me to stammer or look away, and instead I had corrected him in front of my kids. "I was yelling because you wouldn't do the decent thing," he said. "You saw I had 4 kids and you just sat there. There were 10 empty rows. You chose not to use them. You could have moved. It would have cost you nothing. So could you." That one landed. His nostrils flared and he shifted his weight, like the ground under him had gone soft. He was used to people folding when he pushed. That was the whole method. Push loud enough and long enough, and the other person gives in to make it stop. Then Sandra spoke, in that small, clear voice a kid uses when she is trying hard to be brave, and you can still hear the shake under it. "Mom, can you make him go away?" Any normal person would have heard a child say that and taken a step back. Dante looked right at her. "See? Even your kid's uncomfortable. That's what happens when your mother makes a scene everywhere she goes." Everything in me went cold and hot at once. I put my hands flat on the table. "Do not talk to my daughter." And then Delbert's voice came from beside me, confused and small, not understanding why the world had gone ugly. "Mom, why is this man being mean?" Dante faltered. I watched the crack open in the tough act, because whatever he had pictured on the walk over, it was not a little boy with milkshake on his lip looking up at him like he was a monster. For about 2 seconds he looked almost human. Then he recovered the way men like him always do, by finding a version of the story where he is still the good guy. And he leaned down and made his voice soft and fake friendly, the way adults talk to kids they intend to use. "I'm not being mean, buddy," he said, and the word buddy made my skin crawl, because he did not get to call my son buddy. "Your mom did something not nice today and she won't say sorry." That was the line. Not the comments at the cinema, not the laughing when we walked in. It was him leaning down to my 7-year-old and trying to turn my own child against me with a soft voice and a lie. I stood up, not fast, not dramatic. I just rose out of the booth until we were eye to eye, and I reached into my coat pocket, and I found Hal's card with my thumb, and I did not take it out. I did not need to. I only needed to know it was there. "Before you say anything else," I said, and I said it at a normal volume, which was enough because the room had already gone quiet. "I want to tell you something you don't know. Hal came back up to my row after he walked you out, the manager. He apologized to me, and then he told me he recognized you before he even reached the top of the stairs." Dante's arms were still crossed, but something behind his eyes moved. "He said this was the 2nd time. Same screen, same row, same speech about 4 kids, back in March. He said he wrote it up both times, with the date and the screen number, and it's sitting in the log at that cinema right now." I let that stand for a second. "So you didn't get thrown out today because of me. You got thrown out today because of March. I was just the person sitting in the seat." His mouth opened and nothing came out of it. The whole room heard it, but that was not the part that mattered. The part that mattered was 10 feet behind him, where his friend had gone completely still with a fry halfway to his mouth. I saw Dante realize it a half second after I did. He turned his head, and his friend was already looking back at him with an expression I recognized, because it was the expression of a man doing arithmetic he did not want the answer to. "March," his friend said. It was not a question. Dante said, "It's not what she's making it sound like. You told me that was the first time." His friend set the fry down. "You told me you'd never had a problem there. You had me standing behind you in that row today calling a stranger selfish." "Rory, don't." Dante tried one more angle, the one that always worked on him and that he assumed worked on everybody. "You're going to take her word over mine." Rory did not even look up. "I'm not taking her word. I'm taking the manager's, and you're the one who just told me she made it up without asking her what he wrote down." And that was it. That was the whole reversal, and it did not need a raised voice to land. Rory stood up, and he did not look at me, and he did not point at me, and he did not back Dante up. He said something quiet to the 4 kids and started pulling jackets off the backs of the chairs. Dante went after him a step. "You're seriously doing this? Over a movie?" Rory kept bundling jackets. "You're screaming at a woman and her kids in a burger place, and you lied to me in front of mine." He got the last jacket free and turned. "Enough." He said it quieter than anything Dante had said all night, and it carried further, and every person in that section heard it, and every person in that section saw Dante's face when he heard it. It was like watching a building lose its foundation. Dante stood there with nothing to say for the first time since he had walked up to my row, his eyes searching Rory's face for backup, for loyalty, for anything, and finding none of it. The restaurant manager had come around the service counter by then, a woman in a black shirt with a name tag, and she stopped beside him and did not touch him. "Sir, you need to go back to your table or step outside." Dante did what he had done at the cinema. He pointed at me. "She's the problem. Ask her what she did today. Same play. Find someone in charge and turn them against me." It had not worked with the usher, it had not worked with Hal, and it did not work with her either. She did not even glance at me. "I heard what she did today. She sat in a seat. She let that sit. You're standing over a table with children at it. Go, or I'll walk you out." Dante's eyes swept the room, and I watched the moment reality got through. The couple behind us, Both turned around in their chairs. The older man 2 tables over with his fork down and his arms folded. The woman with a baby in a high chair, hand near her mouth. The family by the window. The father there with a hand on his own kid's shoulder in a way that said everything without a word. Not one face in any direction was on his side. Not one. He was the only person in that building who still thought he was right. His shoulders came down half an inch. His chin dropped. The finger that had been pointing at people all night curled back into his fist. He lifted it one last time anyway, because of course he did. That was never not going to happen. And his voice came out rough. "This isn't over." 3 words meant to sound like a threat that came out sounding like a man trying to convince himself he still had a hand to play. I looked at that finger. I looked at my daughter, who had stopped being afraid and was watching me with clear, steady eyes. I looked at my son, gripping his milkshake like a lifeline. "Yes, it is," I said. "It was over in March. You just didn't know anyone had written it down." He did not have anything after that. He turned away from her, away from me, away from Sandra and Delbert and the couple behind us and everyone else who had watched him come apart, and he walked to his table and grabbed his jacket off the chair with a rough jerk, like the chair had offended him. The big table was already empty. Rory had 4 jackets under one arm and 4 kids ahead of him, and I could see 3 of them through the window climbing into the car while he held the door. The 4th had stopped in the doorway. A girl, 12 or so, close to Sandra's age. She stood in the frame with one hand on the glass and looked across the room at me and mouthed one word: "Sorry." She did not say it out loud. She just shaped it with her lips. This small, silent apology from a kid who had no part in any of it and somehow understood it better than the grown man who caused it, and then she turned and was gone. Dante walked out alone. Nobody said goodbye to him. Nobody told him he was right. The only sound was his shoes on the floor, and somebody behind me picking up a fork again, and he shoved through the door with his shoulder like it was the last thing left that he could push, and the glass swung shut. The room let out a breath all at once, a whole dining room exhaling together. The woman behind us touched my shoulder on her way past. "Good for you, hun." She said it like she had known me for years, and then she picked up her water glass, and that was that. I sat down. My legs did not feel entirely solid, and my hands were shaking under the table. Not enough for anyone to see, but I could feel them going against my own palms. Sandra reached over and wrapped her fingers around mine and squeezed, the way she used to when she was small and we crossed a busy street. "Mom," she said, "he lied to his friend the whole time. He did, and you knew. Hal told me. I just didn't say anything until he made me." She thought about that, and then she picked up her bread and finally ate it. Delbert had not let go of his milkshake through any of it. He looked up at me with those big round eyes, chin steady now, and asked in the most perfectly 7-year-old voice you have ever heard, "Can we get burgers now?" I laughed, and it came out messy and too loud, and my eyes went wet from it, and it was the first honest sound I had made all night. "Yeah, baby, we can get burgers now." The food came warm and simple and exactly right. Sandra cleared her plate, every fry, every pickle she usually leaves on the side. Delbert ate with both hands and told us 3 more stories about the kid in his class who can burp the alphabet, and Sandra laughed at everyone even though she had heard them all before. We stayed in that booth until the fries were gone. In the glass, a thin pink film. Outside, the streetlight hummed over the empty space where their car had been.